Welcome to this edition of Back in History. In Back in History, we take you back in time to the events that occurred in the historical past. In this edition, we present to you the profile of the premiers that served in the four regions that made up Nigeria in the First Republic. Nigeria was for many years governed by the British. On October 1, 1960, Nigeria was granted independence and governance was left exclusively in the hands of Nigerian citizens. Before the grant of independence and at independence, Nigeria was divided into three regions, namely the Eastern region, the Western region, and the Northern region. Later on, the Midwestern region was added to make it a total of four regions. These regions were like what we have today as states. The regions were governed by premiers. While Dr. Michael Okpara was the premier of the Eastern region, Chief Obafemi Awolowo was the premier of the Western region. The Sardauna of Sokoto, Ahmadu Bello, was the premier of the Northern region, while Dennis Osadebe was the premier of the Midwestern region. We shall take their profile one after the other. But it is worthy of mention here that before the takeover of power by Dr. Michael Okpara, two other persons had served as premiers of the Eastern region, namely Professor Yoita, who was from present-day Akwa Ibom. He was premier from 1951 to 1953, and Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who took over from Yoita and served from 1954 to 1959. Dr. Michael Okpara was born in December 1920. He was born in Umuahia, in present-day Abia State. He attended mission schools and later attended the Uzuakoli Methodist College, where he won a scholarship to study medicine and surgery at Yaba Higher College, Lagos. He successfully qualified as a medical doctor and took the Hippocratic Oath usually taken by physicians. He worked briefly in Lagos and in Maiduguri as a government medical officer before returning to Umuahia to set up his private medical practice. While in private practice, he developed interest in the Zik movement named after Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was a rallying figure in the politics of the East for many years and in the politics of Nigeria. The Zik movement was a popular movement at the time. Okpara got actively involved in politics, and in 1952, he won election into the Eastern Nigeria House of Assembly under the platform of the NCNC. Okpara was an outspoken person in politics and soon became very popular among his people. He later became the premier of the Eastern region and broke the record as the youngest premier in the country. Okpara was barely 39 years at the time. He went on to govern the region till independence in 1960 and down to 1966, when the First Republic was toppled in a military coup. Other premiers were killed in that coup, but Okpara survived the coup. Okpara then left Nigeria and proceeded to the Republic of Ireland, where he lived in exile for many years before returning to Nigeria. He passed on in Umuahia on 17th December 1984. The next person is Chief Obafemi Awolowo, who was the first premier of the Western region. He served in this capacity from 1954 to 1st October 1960. He was born on 6th March 1909 in his hometown of Ikene in present-day Ogun State. He attended Baptist Boys High School Abeokuta. He later attended Wesley College in Ibadan. He enrolled at the University of London as an external student and graduated with a bachelor's degree in commerce. In 1944, he left the shores of Nigeria and traveled to the United Kingdom to study law at the University of London. Upon successful completion of his studies, he was called to the English bar by the Honorable Society of the Inner Temple on 19th November 1946. Chief Obafemi Awolowo then returned to Nigeria and took active part in politics, law practice, and media practice. He was the founder of the Nigerian Tribune, a platform he used in his spread of nationalistic ideas. He later became the first premier of the Western region of Nigeria, and his administration saw to the unprecedented transformation of the Western region of the country. At the grant of independence to Nigeria on October 1, 1960, Chief Obafemi Awolowo became the leader of the opposition in the federal parliament as the leader of the action group. Ladoke Akintola then succeeded him as premier. Chief Obafemi Awolowo died on 9th May 1987 in his hometown of Ikenne at the age of 78. He remains till date one of the most prominent sons of Yoruba land and of Nigeria. Ladoke Akintola was a London-trained lawyer who served as premier of the Western region from 1960 to January 15, 1966. He became premier when Chief Obafemi Awolowo left regional governance to serve as the leader of the opposition at the center. Akintola was killed in the military coup of January 15, 1966, which was led by Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogu, Major Ifa Juna, and the rest of their colleagues in the coup plot. The next person is Sir Ahmadu Bello, the premier of the Northern region. He was a Sardauna of Sokoto. He was born in Rabba in June 12, 1910. He attended Sokoto Provincial School and also attended Katsina Training College, now known as Barewa College. He served as English teacher in secondary schools in the north and later gained scholarship to study local government administration in the United Kingdom. He served as the first and only premier of the northern region of Nigeria from 1954 to January 15, 1966, when he was assassinated in Nigeria's first ever military coup. He exerted great influence in northern Nigeria, and his name is still on the lips of many till today. The next person is Dennis Osadebe, who served as the premier of the Midwestern region of Nigeria. The present-day Edo State and Delta State were in the Midwestern region. Dennis Osadebe was born in June 1911. He attended Asaba Government School, Asaba, Sacred Heart School in Calabar, and also attended Hope Wardell Training Institute, Calabar, in present-day Cross River State. He subsequently went to England, where he studied law. He was called to bar on completion of his studies. He returned to Nigeria and went into law practice and combined SEM with politics. He was the premier of the Midwestern region from 1963 to 1966, when the First Republic was truncated in a military coup. Osadebe survived the coup and lived on till December 1994, when he passed on at the age of 83 in Asaba. It is important to note that these premiers did so much in their regions and were the brains behind the creation of most of the public institutions in the respective regions. In the Western region, it was Chief Obafemi Awolowo who opened most of the roads that crisscross the states that now make up the region. It was during his premiership that the University of Ile-Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, was established. He introduced free education to the region and granted several scholarships for bright children to study and earn degrees in Nigeria and abroad. He established countless primary and secondary schools within the region. He established the first TV station in West Africa and constructed the Cocoa House, an imposing edifice built from revenue generated 100% from cocoa. His contributions to Western Nigeria are indelible and will not be forgotten in many years to come. On his part, Sir Ahmadu Bello was the founder of what is today known as Ahmadu Bello University, one of the leading institutions of higher learning in Nigeria, which has stood the test of time till today. He established what is known as the Northern Nigeria Development Corporation, the Bank of the North, the Broadcasting Company of Northern Nigeria, and the Nigeria Citizen newspaper. He built several primary and secondary schools across the North. He invested heavily in agriculture and many other aspects of development of the North. He constructed several roads across the North. Ahmadu Bello was so dear to the hearts of the people of Northern Nigeria, and his assassination in January 1966 was received with pain in the heart of many. Unfortunately, Sir Ahmadu Bello was killed together with his dear wife, Hafsatu. On his part, Dr. Michael Okpara, as Premier of the Eastern region, played a significant role in the industrialization of places like Enugu, Aba, Umuahia, and present-day Port Harcourt. He invested heavily in agriculture and in the educational sector. He was loved by many across the eastern part of the country. On his part, Dennis Osadebe, as Premier of the Midwestern region, also developed the region. He built schools, constructed roads, and saw to the establishment of several other public utilities. Ladoke Akintola, the second Premier of the Western region, also contributed immensely to the development of the region. There is the argument among several persons in Nigeria today that the premiers were more committed to development and governance than most of the persons that have led the different states of the Federation following the collapse of the regional system of government. There is also the argument that the prevailing revenue formula at the time, which allowed the regions to take 50% of revenue generated from natural resources, while 50% was paid to the government at the center, had given more money to the regions for development, contrary to the prevailing era where mineral producing states are allowed to take only 13% and pay the remaining 87% of revenue to the government at the center. Whatever may be the most appropriate argument on this, what is indisputable is the fact that the premiers of the four regions that made up Nigeria during Nigeria's first republic were people who approached governance with commitment, passion, dedication, and love for their people. Their memories shall remain green in the hearts of many in Nigeria, Africa, and the world for many more years to come. Thanks for watching this edition of Back in History, and do remember to subscribe to the channel or follow the page for regular notification on every new video.